Today on Investigate TV Plus.
He was my baby. I couldn't save him.
Seemingly calm waters hide a deadly secret. Some call them drowning machines, and they take lives every year.
We have to stop this. We have to warn the public.
We examine the challenges regulators face as they piece together a national inventory of these dams to warn the public.
Plus, removing scars from the past.
I love doing it. It's the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life.
His mission to help survivors of sex trafficking take back control of their bodies.
Then, a calling to public service.
If you need someone to be there during the worst time of their life, you want someone like him there.
We reveal what inspired this teen to become a firefighter at just 16.
In-depth stories that inform and inspire. You're watching Investigate TV Plus.
The lakes, rivers, and streams that wind through our country offer an outdoor escape for many. I'm Tisha Powell.
And I'm Lee Zurich, but lurking under the surface of some bodies of water is what some call a drowning machine. Man-made structures designed to control the flow of water. They're officially known as low-head dams. According to the Association of State Dam Safety Officials, they can create a current difficult to escape even for the strongest swimmers. And each year they're responsible for dozens of deaths.
Now, new action from the federal government could help save lives. A congressional mandate calls to add potentially dangerous low-head dams to a national inventory that warns the public.
But as investigative reporter Josie Sturman found out, the work could take years. She explains why some families say that help is already too late.
Yeah, it was probably my second time in a kayak in my life, and I'm just following him.
It was supposed to be a joyful father-son trip down the Delaware River until Jim and Jonathan Gentile encountered a low-head dam.
And it didn't catch me. I don't know why it didn't catch me. The way he went over, it just dumped him right into the vortex. Mine, it shot me out past it. So then I see something pop up out of the water, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that's his backpack at least. So I swim over and I grab it. It wasn't his backpack, it was his life vest that he was still in. And everybody's on their balconies drinking their Sunday morning coffee, and I'm screaming, dial 911.
Jim, an experienced nurse, was powerless in an emergency that would stop Jonathan's heart and break his.
He was my baby. I couldn't save him. Sorry. We have to stop this. We have to warn the public.
Warning about a deadly drowning machine, the kind we found claim as many as 50 lives a year across the country. It happens because of a scientific phenomenon. When rivers and creeks are at a certain level, some dam structures can create a backwash, a watery prison that churns the people caught in it over and over.
And just look at how fast the water on the surface is moving back towards the structure.
As you go over, you get into this hydraulic, and you've got this aeration. Even if you're wearing a life vest, you can still have a real problem in not being able to, get enough air because it's continuing to take you down, just like, the washing machine.
A deadly spin cycle that Tom Smith with the American Society of Civil Engineers explains exists at so-called low-head dams. But locating these dangerous dams is often a tragic experiment, with the danger identified too late, only after the drowning of unsuspecting victims. Still, despite decades of tragedy, no one in the federal government has been officially keeping track of low-head dams. And barely more than a dozen states actually record and publicize their locations to warn the public.
We want to make sure it's a priority in every state so they don't have to be reacting when somebody drowns.
It's now a priority for the feds, with Congress passing legislation finally adding low-head dams into the national dam inventory that's public, tracking down where they are, their conditions, and what hazards exist. But finding all of those low-head dams, we're told, could take years, with concerns about funding the job and figuring out who's responsible for them.
Some of it's very hard to find. Some of it we don't even know who the owners are because they go back over 100 years. So there's an enormous amount of work that has to be done.
Its work, we discovered, is complicated, with murky or mysterious ownership issues uncovered in property records, state and local documents, and verified sources. Our investigative team dug through the largest existing formal catalog of low-head dams across the nation. We found thousands with reportedly unknown or unclear owners. More than 90 of those have been linked to at least one death.
Unfortunately, there's nothing quite like a tragedy to get action. What we'd like to be able to do is provide enough information that we can avoid the tragedy.
U.S. Senator Kevin Cramer, among the lawmakers who pushed for the bill that adds low-head dams into the national inventory, says information about these hazards will help keep the public safe by getting the word out. Fixes or removal could then follow, although Cramer says that's not for the federal government to decide or fund.
It's to help states and local governments know what they have on their hands, and then to start preparing and planning for the costs associated.
People like Jim Gentile say they've already paid too much.
Here it is, it's almost 3 years later, and it still hurts like hell every day. It doesn't get easier, you just learn how to manage it.
He wants the dam that took his son's life classified by the federal government as a lowhead and added into the national inventory so more people will know about the silent killer that sits below the water.
The last year I've just given up. I've really given up, and I don't think I should have given up. I lost energy, I lost hope, and maybe this is bringing a little bit of hope back.
The Army Corps of Engineers will be handling much of the inventory work, saying it hopes to have a webpage that lets people search an initial set of known low-head dams later this year, with expansions over the next 2 years. Although the agency got funding to get started, it said it hasn't yet received additional funding to continue this year.
Still ahead, after one man survives a heart attack, he calls this device the medical miracle that kept him from having another.
The EMTs, my doctor, the people at the hospital, everybody said that thing saved your life.
We examine the technology helping patients live a full life.
But first, for some, tattoos represent a dark past.
What did it do to you emotionally, psychologically, having that on your body?
Well, for my trafficker's name, it was on my thigh, so anytime I wore shorts, it was like the ownership was there.
We introduce you to the people helping sex trafficking survivors rewrite their stories. It's a form of forced labor that primarily impacts women and girls. The International Labor Organization estimates at any point, more than 6.3 million people are being sexually exploited in exchange for money.
In 2021, researchers published the results of a study seeking to identify some of the physical signs that someone is being trafficked.
In addition to injuries such as burns and cuts, experts found abusers use tattoos to brand their victims. That's something tattoo artist Gina Jernukian had to learn on the job in Phoenix, Arizona.
The next thing I know, I would say in a matter of 3 months, there were so many odd tattoos, crowns and names and just tattoos that didn't make sense. Enough so where I start asking around, like, what are these? And someone had told me they're brandings. I didn't even know that existed.
Now she helps survivors rewrite their stories by covering them with her art.
Afterwards, the transformation, it's almost like a weight's lifted off of them. They don't have to see this visible signs of this painful past every single day that they look in the mirror.
About 1,500 miles away, a nonprofit helps survivors heal by removing their branding tattoos.
Reporter Tan Trung shows us how and introduces us to two women with a renewed sense of hope.
New Orleans can be a postcard-worthy place, but for two women,
I was mainly trafficked in the French Quarter, and so I cannot go in the French Quarter at all.
There are certain parts of the city they avoid.
I drive through different parts of the city, and I remember being the person just like outside of the world, watching it go by.
Both Jane and Michelle want to keep their identities private, but they do identify as survivors of sex trafficking.
I didn't really know if I was going to live or die.
For Jane, her first 6 years in what she and Michelle call the life started around 2012.
Very early 20s. I had a loss in my family.
Jane says for a time she was homeless and would stay with people for shelter and survival. She says sex trafficking followed, and so did some of the darkest and most dangerous moments of her young life.
I'm lucky to be alive. I was almost sold overseas, but I escaped.
Michelle says she was trafficked in her late teens. When she tried to escape, she says her trafficker left his mark on her body through tattoos.
Well, for my trafficker's name, you know, it was on my thigh, so anytime I wore shorts, it was like the ownership was there. The other tattoos that I had, which is symbols of my trafficker, what he saw me as, and then I also tattooed my name on my body in case anyone found my body, that they would have a point of information of how to identify me.
The trafficker will sell a boy or a girl to another trafficker, and then that sex trafficker will put his brand, his tattoo, on that boy or girl.
Scott Vaughn, who owns a rehabilitation and aesthetics clinic in Metairie, says up until a few years ago, he didn't know the prevalence of human and sex trafficking in Louisiana. In 2020, he bought this high-powered laser and began offering tattoo removal.
And when I saw how effective that laser was from one treatment, something just spoke to me. And I knew that I had something here. I knew that I had something that I could give back to the community and society with.
He couldn't figure out how to quite do that with the laser until his friend told him about a medical conference she attended where a sex trafficking survivor spoke about her trauma, including the lasting effects of tattoos and brandings. That planted the seed for what would become Unbranded, Vaughn's nonprofit offering tattoo removals to survivors. He says a meeting on Mardi Gras 2022 put everything in focus.
And that's where I actually spoke to the first survivor and got very emotional in that meeting, to say the least.
That survivor, Michelle.
In that meeting, he did not know that I was a survivor. And so I immediately just started crying. And I was like, you could get rid of these brandings on me. And he goes, yes.
Unbranded also removed the tattoo on Jane's face.
I still have to stop and just be filled with gratitude that isn't what I see or what people see today, especially with how my life has developed and now how I feel anything is possible.
It's like having that removed gives me a clean slate of now I have my body back.
Michelle now uses her unique insight into trafficking with her consulting company, which often collaborates with the Governor's Office of Human Trafficking Prevention. Jane, too, is on a new path.
I have an amazing little daughter, and I have just got to a point where I accepted a job that I'm going to be starting next week. I'm in a very good spot in my life.
A life with fewer scars of the past. According to the American Society of Plastic Surgeons, the typical cost of laser tattoo removal is almost $700. But experts say for larger tattoos or tattoos with certain pigment, that price can reach the thousands. Unbranded provides the service to survivors for free. Since 2022, the service has treated 43 survivors and so far removed 350 tattoos. Reporting in New Orleans, I'm Tom Trung.
If you or someone you know is being victimized by human trafficking, help is out there. The National Human Trafficking Hotline is free and confidential. It also provides guidance on the red flags of trafficking and safety tips for traveling across the country or abroad. Just call the number on your screen or head to humantraffickinghotline.org.
Still ahead, from studies to service.
I feel like being here, it helped me kind of grow up a little bit quicker.
We introduce you to a teen quickly becoming a leader in his department and share his motivation to help his community.
Plus, a life-saving medical device.
It served its purpose perfectly because he would have actually likely died in his bed that night.
We examine new technology helping some patients recover after a heart emergency.
Having a heart attack puts many people at risk of having another.
According to the American Heart Association, about 1 in 5 people who have a heart attack will be readmitted to the hospital for a second one within 5 years.
Some who survive a heart attack may be prescribed a pacemaker, which uses low-energy electrical pulses to control the rhythm of the heart. According to the Cleveland Clinic, for patients at risk of sudden cardiac arrest, a doctor may prescribe a wearable defibrillator, which monitors the heart and delivers a shock to restore rhythm.
One man says that device saved his life, and now he has new hope for the future.
Reporter Jason Barry shows us how it works.
Life is back to normal for Izzy and Benita Sonabend. The Phoenix couple is traveling again, spending time with family. And it's all because of this. A medical life vest that saved Izzy's life.
The EMTs, my doctor, the people at the hospital, everybody said that thing saved your life.
It was just last year the 72-year-old grandfather was feeling great, playing ice hockey every Friday night. Then everything changed when he had a heart attack. Thankfully, Izzy recovered and was sent home from the hospital. But because he was still at risk of another cardiac crisis, doctors prescribed him a life vest, a wearable heart monitor and defibrillator to be worn around the clock. The device is intended to apply an electrical shock if someone's heart stops.
If it senses that your heart is going into some distress, it will discharge. And that's what happened.
Izzy went into cardiac arrest at home in the middle of the night. His wife says the life vest was able to address the problem right away without having to wait for paramedics to arrive.
When somebody has a heart attack and their heart needs to be shocked, that takes time. This was immediate. And we could have lost him in that time that it would take, whether it was for rescue to come here or from the nurse's station in the ICU into his room.
Doctors at Banner University Medical Center Phoenix tell us a growing number of cardiologists are prescribing these life vests for patients who are in the middle of a treatment or waiting for another procedure, like what happened with Izzy.
It served its purpose perfectly in providing a bridge between the initial event that damaged his heart muscle and then more definitive therapy that it turns out he very much did need. And he really would have never gotten because he would have actually likely died in his bed that night.
The vest and battery pack weigh about 2 pounds. Izzy says it's fairly comfortable and easy to wear.
When it comes to heart failure, a tiny device is giving some patients hope for the future. This is Barostim. It may look like a pacemaker, but it works much differently.
Where it goes to the right side of your neck, where nerve bundles are controlling the blood flow to our brain. And by stimulating those nerve bundles, what I can do is I can trick your brain into thinking you don't have heart failure.
When taken with prescribed heart medications, manufacturer CVRx says it has a 94% success rate with heart failure patients.
I went, and I'm not exaggerating, I went from planning my funeral to planning vacation.
According to CVRx, a Barostim procedure cost on average about $43,000. It doesn't specify cost with insurance.
Still ahead, we introduce you to a teen with a passion for saving lives.
He came in knowing that he wanted to take this seriously, which is pretty seldom, far few between for kids.
And we take you inside the department successfully recruiting the next generation.
Among the 27,000 fire departments registered with the U.S. Fire Association, nearly 70% are volunteer. The states with the most volunteer fire departments: Delaware, South Dakota, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, and North Dakota.
In Virginia, one volunteer firefighter found his calling and decided to pursue it at just 16 years old.
Reporter Ashley Hendricks shows us how years later, he's making his mark on the department and community.
There are some teenagers who are glued to their phones, keeping up with schoolwork and the latest TikTok trends. Then there are teens like Liam Laxton.
I feel like being here, it helped me kind of grow up a little bit quicker.
At just 16 years old, Liam says he was called to volunteer here.
And this is our
a turnout jacket.
I was going to work one morning and I flipped my first car, and Disputana volunteer fire department was who responded, and you know, that kind of inspired me.
It's been 2 years since then.
That's my helmet.
And that eye-opening experience is just a part of what keeps him here at the Disputana Volunteer Fire Department. It's where Liam spends his weekends and his days off from his other job. William Hedgepeth, who has been with the department for 25 years, has found new hope in Liam's leadership.
If you need someone to be there during the worst time of their life, you want someone like him there, because he's the one who'll listen to you and be there while they're waiting for the bad to get a little bit better.
Hooks up right in there.
He says Liam ran the most calls from this department last year, but what stands out the most is how he responds to emergency situations.
We need more people like Liam out here that takes this initiative and wants to be there for the community, because not enough people want to be there for their community during times of trouble.
26-year-old Shania Inge is the fire captain here. She agrees Liam's impact is undeniable.
We were kind of dwindling off on having younger members. Myself and a group of about 6 other guys before him were the youngest people.
But in just 2 years, Liam has already recruited 7 volunteers to join the front lines.
He came in knowing that he wanted to take this seriously, which is pretty seldom, far few between for kids.
I don't feel like I've done too much special. This is what I do. I enjoy it.
But it certainly doesn't hurt to recognize those who volunteered their free time to save lives.
Wow, combining your schoolwork with firefighting and all of the other things that come along with being 16.
What an impressive kid, right?
Exactly.
Making a difference at a young age.
Well, that's it for us on Investigate TV Plus. I'm Tisha Powell.
And I'm Lee Zurich. Thanks for watching.
On the next Investigate TV Plus, desperate people lied to and charged hundreds of dollars for what some consider a simple job.
I would have to pretend to be whatever locksmith company they thought I was, because that's the one they called.
A former scammer exposes the deceptive tactics used to prey on unknowing victims and the solutions to save you money.